This course will guide you to pass stage 1 and stage 2 audit for ISO 22000 food safety management system, and is tailored to retail, supermarket, and food service. So we'll give you all the materials you need to pass both stages and sustain zero findings across all the standards. Part 1, we covered quality management system with ISO 9001. Part 2, we covered ISO 45001 and ISO 14001. Part 3, we are covering food safety management system with ISO 22000. And part 4, we will cover FSSC 22000 and integrated management system. Each part will guide you to get certified if you follow through step by step to implement all the documentations required and also tailor to your local regulatory requirements and legislations, as well implement the practices needs to sustain operational excellence. Now let's have a look at ISO 22000 food safety in consumer or customer facing environments. Retail and food service operations handle food safety directly in front of customers. Mistakes are immediately visible and immediately consumed. Controls here must prevent temperature abuse, cross-contamination, and allergen exposure during every shift. The core controls for food safety risks: customer-facing operations must establish robust controls across critical areas. Those risk areas include temperature abuse, cross-contamination, allergen exposure, and poor hygiene. If we look at temperature abuse, holding food too long at unsafe temperature, or inadequate cooling or reheating, or display equipment failing during service, or staff unaware of time limits, all of these lead to temperature abuse, and you must maintain critical control. And for cross-contamination, when raw and cooked food are in contact, or unwashed hands touching ready-to-eat foods, or same equipment used without proper cleaning, or contamination during busy periods, all are such practices that will lead to cross-contamination, and you need to control each and every one of them. Regarding allergen exposure, incorrect menu information, cross contact during preparation, staff unable to answer customer questions, substitution made without proper checks are all practices that lead to allergen exposure, and we need to implement robust control. And for poor hygiene, such as inadequate hand washing between tasks, or ill workers handling food, or dirty equipment and surfaces, or lapses when supervisors are absent, all are examples of poor hygiene that must be controlled. The critical principle for food safety in customer-facing environments: mistakes made in retail and food service cannot be corrected downstream, and food goes directly to consumers. Problems cause immediate harm, and controls must work at every time and every shift. That's why robust control, awareness, and system design must be effective to prevent the harm. If we look at a simple process flow in retail and food service, it starts with receiving to check temperature and quality, then moving to storage with segregated areas to prevent cross-contamination, and moving to preparation to cook and assemble with allergen controls, and display our service to hold at safe temperature and service, and then to waste, to dispose and clean to prevent hazards. Now, each step in the retail and food service process must be assessed for temperature abuse risk that we just described previous slide. Potential for cross-contamination also must be assessed, and allergen exposure and behavioral lapses from each step and activities. Controls are required at every point where food is handled, particularly during customer-facing activities. Let's look at hazard analysis for retail and food service operations. Hazard analysis must reflect actual service conditions, peak period measures, and behavioral realities of customer-facing environments. Those hazards include biological growth, bacterial multiplication during holding, inadequate cooking temperature, showing cooling, slow cooling, allow pathogen growth, and food held too long during service period. All these elements must be assessed. We must have adequate awareness, adequate information to control the hazards, to analyze it, to assess, and to make sure we prevent the consequences of harm. Similarly, it applies to cross-contamination. When raw meat juices contact ready-to-eat food, or unwashed hands between tasks, or same cutting boards for raw and cooked, or equipments not clean between allergen and non-allergens, are all practices and elements that lead to cross-contamination and subsequently lead to severe consequences for the consumers. So we need, again, to analyze hazard, all these hazards, and apply control measures and ensure food safety throughout. Also, for allergen mismanagement is a bigger hazard and a bigger risk, such as incorrect manual labeling, or cross-contact during preparation, or staff substituting ingredients without checking, or lack of allergen knowledge when customers ask questions, are all hazards and risks that must be analyzed, assessed, and controlled. As well, for physical contamination, such as broken equipment, fragments in food, jewelry failing into preparation, foreign objects from suppliers, packaging materials in customer portions, are all hazards that will lead to severe consequences. Therefore, we need to analyze, control, and eliminate any potential hazards. If we look at prerequisite programs in retail and food service are highly important, because prerequisite programs are or PRPs are the primary control system in retail and food service. Unlike manufacturing, where CCPs dominate or critical control points dominate, customer-facing operations rely heavily on hygiene, rely heavily on temperature control, and rely heavily on behavioral controls functioning consistently. Therefore, we need to apply strict personal hygiene, hand washing required at the required frequency, clean uniforms and apparels, no jewelry in food areas, all workers or ill workers exclusion, and hand washing between raw and cooked tasks are personal hygiene practices that we must implement strictly. As well, for cleaning and sanitation, we must implement strictly scheduled cleaning during and after service, food safe sanitizers, contact time must be verified as well, effectiveness checked, and deep cleaning procedures for equipment are also required. And for temperature control, cooking to required temperature, rapid cooling procedures, hot holding above 60 degrees Celsius, cold display below 5 degrees Celsius, and time limits for holding out for food out of temperature controls are all practices that must be adhered to and followed strictly. Then for allergen segregation, we must follow the segregation of storage areas, dedicated equipment where practical, cleaning between allergen and non-allergen preparation, clear menu labeling, and staff training on allergen questions are all required. And then for pest control, we require proofing to prevent entry, monitoring devices in key locations, rapid response to sightings, treatment records, and staff training on reporting procedures are all required for pest control effectiveness. Now, if we look at monitoring and corrective actions, monitoring systems must trigger immediate response when limits are exceeded. Auditors look for evidence that temperature failures and hygiene lapses are investigated and not just logged. So we need, whenever temperature failure or hygiene lapses happen, we need to investigate the root cause, apply corrections, apply corrective actions, and follow up on effectiveness. Now, if we start with real-time monitoring, the temperature must be checked during cooking. Holding temperature must be verified every 2 hours. Display case temperature must be monitored as well, and cooling rates must be checked and recorded. And for immediate corrective actions, for instance, food out of temperature immediately must be removed from service. Cross-contamination must result in discard, and equipment failure results in transfer to working units or disposal. Then for product dispositions, we must have clear decisions on food safety after failures, and when in doubt, we must throw it away and not decide to put it in service. And we must have documented rationale for releasing products after deviation, and management approval must be required at this point. Some failure patterns that we need to avoid: temperature logs being completed but no evidence of response to excursions, and product served despite being held too long or at wrong temperature during busy periods are all failure patterns that we must avoid. Now let's have a complete look at the ISO 22018 audit readiness checklist, and we are going to give examples for New Zealand retails and food service because they are known for excellence, operational excellence, and implementation of international standards. But you must tailor to your local legislations and regulations. Everywhere where we mentioned local regulations or legislations, you must replicate that to apply, tailor it to your own operations. to apply it to your local jurisdictions. Now let's start with complete stage 1 and stage 2 preparation, aligning with New Zealand Food Act 2014 and MPI food control plans. As I said, if you are in a different country, instead of saying aligning with New Zealand Food Act 2014, you must replace that with your country jurisdiction alignment. And MPI here, or Ministry of Primary Industry Food Control Plans, is for New Zealand, and you must apply equivalent in your own country. So we will list the area for ISO 22000 class and documentation required in stage 1 and what auditors check in stage 1 and 2 and key deliverables. We will start with class 4.1, context of the organizations. The documentation required in stage 1, you need to have context analysis for food safety management system document. Auditors in stage 1, they will review the evidence of understanding internal and external issues relevant to food safety for retail and food service. And then on stage 2, they will interview staff to confirm awareness of how these issues impact their roles and adherence to local regulations. So what you need to deliver here, you need to have complete analysis, context analysis being completed within 12 months, reflecting food safety risks and opportunities specific to your local or national retail and food service regulations. Then in class 4.2, for interested parties, the document required, you need to have interested parties register. During stage 1, the auditor will review evidence of identifying interested parties and their food safety expectations. Those interested parties will include customers and regulatory, national regulatory in your own country. Then on stage 2, or during stage 2, they will interview staff to confirm awareness of key parties and their requirements. Your deliverables here, you need to have interested parties identified with documented food safety expectations and include compliance with your national regulations. In New Zealand, it must be in compliance with New Zealand Food Act 2014. Class 4.3 requires a scope of food safety management system, and this is a mandatory requirement, so you must have a scope statement. An auditor during stage 1 will review the accuracy and definition of the food safety management system scope. And during stage 2, they will conduct on-site observations to confirm operations align with defined scope within retail and food service boundaries. Your deliverable here, your scope must be current, approved scope statement that clearly define the food safety management system boundaries relevant to your national operations or your location operations. And then in class 4.4, it requires food safety management system. And during stage 1, you need to have process maps document for food safety management system showing interactions. The auditor during stage 1 will confirm processes identified and interactions understood with retail and food service environment. And during stage 2, the auditor will interact with the staff to ensure that staff can articulate their roles within process map. Your key deliverable, you need to have the document of integrated process map showing, or a particular process map showing how food safety processes interact for retail and food service operations. And that is class 4. Now moving to class 5, start with class 5.1, requires leadership and commitment. And here you have a mandatory requirements, which is food safety policies. And this policy is a mandatory requirement, and you need to have also document for management review minutes. During stage 1, auditor will review top management's commitment to food safety management system, ensuring resources are provided and policy is communicated. And also management review minutes showing actions taken and resources allocated. During stage 2, auditor will interact with the staff to confirm understanding of management's commitment. Your key deliverables: you must have evidence of top management's commitment and resources allocations to the food safety management system, supporting compliance with your regulatory requirements. In New Zealand, that means it must show compliance with New Zealand Food Act. Then in class 5.2, it requires policy, and these are mandatory requirements for food safety policy. During stage 1, the auditor will review policy for completeness and alignment with your national regulatory expectations. In New Zealand, those one must be with New Zealand regulatory expectations, for example, MPI. And staff will be interviewed during stage 2 to demonstrate understanding of the policy and its application. Your key deliverables: you must have your documents of food safety policy approved by the top management, dated with certification periods, and communicated and understood by relevant personnel. Then in class 5.3, which requires operational organization roles, responsibilities, and authorities, you are required to have documents for responsibility matrices and organizational chart. Those documents will be reviewed by the auditors during stage 1. Auditor will review organizational structure, roles, responsibilities, and authorities for food safety. And during stage 2, auditor will interview staff to confirm that staff can clearly state their food safety responsibilities and reporting. Now, your deliverables: you must have your document with responsibilities being assigned to named individual with evidence of communication and understanding of their food safety roles. That is class 5. Now moving to class 6. Class 6.1 requires actions to address risks and opportunities. And here you must have documents for risk register specific to food safety management system. During stage 1, auditor will review risk identification methodology and completeness. And then during stage 2, auditor will seek evidence of actions taken to address identified risk and exploit opportunities in retail food service, in retail food safety service context, since that's the topic of our course. Your deliverables here: you need to have risk and opportunities being identified for food safety management, and risk assessment methodology being documented with actions in place. Then in class 6.2, you are required to have food safety management system objectives and planning to achieve them. And this is the mandatory requirements to have your food safety objectives documented. An auditor will review during stage 1 your objectives for SMART criteria and link it to significant food risks. And during stage 2, your auditor will seek evidence to show evidence that showing progress towards objectives and corrective actions if not met. Your deliverables here, you must have your objective documented, and they must be measurable and linked to policy and significant food risks, and documents of your action plans being defined and responsibilities being assigned and progress being tracked. Then in clause 6.3, planning of change, you are required to have documents for change management procedure and records. All the records and procedure will be reviewed by the auditor during stage 1 for planning and controlling change impacting food safety management system. Then during stage 2, auditor will seek evidence showing change, for example, new menu items or equipment are reviewed for food safety implications and implemented effectively. So your deliverable here, you must have documented procedures for managing change to the food safety management system with records of review and implementation for significant change. That is clause 6. Now for clause 7. Clause 7.1 requires resources. The document requires here you must have resources allocations plan document and equipment maintenance records documents. During stage 1, the auditor will verify adequate resources, including personnel, infrastructure, and environment, are provided for food safety management system. And the auditor also will review maintenance records during stage 2 for essential equipment and facilities, for example, refrigerator or refrigerations in retails. Your deliverables, you must have evidence of appropriate resources and implementation, or you must have appropriate resources to implement, maintain, and improve the food safety management system, including infrastructure and work environment. Then in class 7.2, it requires competence, and this is a mandatory requirement to have competence matrices for food safety management system and training records. The metrics or the matrices and training records will be reviewed by the auditor during the first stage for competence requirements. Training records will be reviewed also to confirm staff possess required skill. Then during stage 2, the staff will be interviewed to confirm competence for their food safety tasks and understanding of the national food safety standards. Your deliverables, you must have documents with defined competence requirements for all roles affecting food safety, identified and met training records or training needs, and verifiable through records and staff interview. The competence must be verifiable. And then in clause 7.3, required awareness, and you must have documents for induction and training program and communication records. All these documents will be assessed by the auditor during the first stage to assess the awareness of food safety policy, objectives, and importance of food safety management system, and implications of non-conformance. Then during stage 2, the staff will be interviewed to confirm understanding of their contributions and adherence to national regulations. Your deliverables, you must have documented evidence that the staff are aware of the food safety management system and food safety policy and objectives and their individual contribution to the food safety. Then in class 7.4 requires communication. You must have documents for communication procedures and internal and external communication records. All this will be reviewed by the auditors during the first stage. To check the process for internal and external food safety matters, and records must show effective communication with customers, for example, regarding allergens, and suppliers and regulatory bodies in your jurisdictions. Your deliverables here, you must have established communication processes for relevant internal and external food safety information with records. And then in clause 7.5, for documented information requirements, you must have documents for the document control procedure, and you must have also, so you need procedure for document control and procedure for record control, and you need a master list for the documents. All of this will be reviewed by the auditor. During first stage, the auditor will review documents and records control system, and the evidence must show current version of documents are used and records are maintained as per retention periods. Then during stage 2, staff will the auditor will interact with the staff to confirm that the staff have access and use control documents correctly. So your deliverables here must include and demonstrate the evidence for documented and implemented documents and records control system with maintained records and proper usage and compliance with your national records keeping requirements. That is clause 7. For clause 8, starting with 8.1, operational planning and control requirements, you must have procedures for operational control or procedures, for example, including purchasing, storage, dispatch. Each must have procedure. During stage 1, auditor will review planning and control of operational processes and will seek evidence to show controls for outsourced processes, for example, third-party logistics, and ensuring suppliers meet food safety requirements. Your deliverables, you must have documented operational controls, including criteria for acceptance of raw materials and finished products, considering your national context. Then in class 8.2 requires PRPs or prerequisite programs. This is mandatory requirements to have procedures for all of your prerequisite programs. During stage 1, auditor will review your prerequisite programs, identifications, and documentation. And during stage 2, the auditor will conduct on-site observation to confirm your PRPs are implemented and records are maintained. For example, cleaning logs, pest control reports, staff hygiene, and checks in retail and food service settings as per local or your national regulations guidance. And during stage 2, also, your staff must demonstrate adherence to PRP procedures. Your deliverables here, you must have documented and implemented PRP procedures with maintained records. For example, cleaning log and pest control reports and staff hygiene checks, and must align with your national food control plan requirements. Then on class 8.3, for traceability system requirements, this is mandatory to have procedure for your traceability, and the auditor will review traceability system design with practical demonstration or mock recalls Results confirms the system is effective in identifying products forward and backward within required time frame. And this is crucial for your retail and food service based on your national requirements. In New Zealand, it's crucial. Your deliverables, you must have documented traceability system, proven effectiveness or effective through testing, for example, mock recall, and meeting your national requirements. In New Zealand, it must meet New Zealand Food Act requirements. For Clause 8.4, it requires emergency preparedness and response. This is here you must have documents for emergency response plan and mock recall records. During stage 1, auditor will review emergency plans for food safety incidents, for example, product recall or contamination event. An auditor will seek evidence in stage 2 showing mock recall procedures and staff training for emergencies and consistent with all the national requirements recall guidelines. In New Zealand, this must be in compliance with New Zealand recall guidelines. Your deliverables, you must have documented emergency preparedness and response plan, including mock recalls procedures with records of executing and effectiveness or execution and effectiveness. Then in class 8.5 for hazard control, including hazard analysis and HACCP, or hazard analysis critical control point. During stage 1, the document requires you must have hazard analysis, and this is mandatory requirement. And also you must have product description, you must have flow diagram, you must have hazard team records, and you must have hazard plan, and also mandatory requirement. During stage 1, auditor will review completeness and logic of hazard identification, product description, and flow diagram. Also, HACCP team must demonstrate competence and hazard identified for each step and control measures observed in practice. This all in stage 2, and align with your national food control plan principles and evidence showing CCP monitoring records and critical limits are met and corrective actions taken when deviations occur, and staff demonstrates understanding of CCP and their roles, and validation evidence of control measures is available. Your deliverables here, you must have complete hazard analysis and established HACCP plans, and must align with your national regulatory requirements. In New Zealand, it must align with MPI food control plans, with CCP monitoring records, critical limits met, corrective actions taken for deviations, and validation evidence. Then for class 8.6, it requires updating the food safety management system. And here you need records of food safety management system updates, for example, hazard analysis review and PRP review. During stage 1, the auditor will review records showing regular updates of food safety management system, including hazard analysis, PRPs, and hazard plans, reflecting change in operations or your national regulations. Your deliverables here, you must have evidence of food safety management system review and updating at planned intervals, for example, annually or when changes occur. Then in class 8.7, it requires control of monitoring and measuring equipment. Here, you must have documents of calibration procedures. You must have calibration schedule, and you must have document for equipment list. All this must be reviewed by auditor during stage 1 the auditor will review calibration system, calibration records for monitoring equipment, for example, thermometer or pH meters. And the auditor will confirm that all are up to date and traceable. During stage 2, the staff will be observed to confirm that they use calibrated equipment correctly in daily operations. Your deliverables here, you must have established calibration system with up-to-date and traceable calibration records for monitoring equipment. Then in clause 8.8, it requires verification related to PRP and the HACCP plan. And here, you need to have documents for verification schedule and verification records. During stage 1, the auditor will review verification activities for PRP and HACCP plan, and the records demonstrating PRP and the HACCP plans are implemented effectively and achieve intended results, for example, product testing results and environmental monitoring. Your deliverables must include documented verification activities with records confirming PRP and HACCP plan are effectively implemented. And then in class 8.9, requirements for the control of nonconformities. This is mandatory requirement. You must have nonconformance and corrective actions procedures. Auditor will review the nonconformant handling process during stage 1 and records of nonconformities, for example, temperature excursion or contamination events, showing proper investigation and corrective actions and verification of effectiveness. Then in stage 2, the staff will be observed or interact with, and your staff must demonstrate understanding of the procedure and reporting to your local authorities if required. Your deliverables here. You must have documented nonconformance and corrective actions procedure with records showing proper investigation, actions, and verification of effectiveness. Then in clause 9.1, it requires monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation. And here you must have documents for monitoring plans, food safety management system, and performance evaluation records. And also, the auditor during the stage 1 will review the monitoring plans and records showing your records must show ongoing monitoring of performance indicators and analysis of results. And during stage 2, or still in stage 1, the auditor will need evidence with actions taken based on monitoring data as evidence. And during stage 2, the auditor will conduct on-site observation of real-time monitoring records, for example, temperature for retail and food service operations. Your deliverables here. You must have defined performance indicators for food safety and implemented monitoring and analysis methods with records, and including real-time monitoring in your national retail and food safety and food service. And in clause 9.2, it requires internal audit, and this is a mandatory requirement. You must have procedure for internal audit. You must have audit program and schedule, and you must have audit reports. Auditor during stage 1 will review audit program and completed internal audit reports, and will seek evidence showing findings are addressed through corrective actions and improve the food safety management system. Your deliverables include internal audit program must cover all ISO 22000 requirements annually. An auditor Your auditor must be competent with demonstration, and audit schedule must be followed, and findings must be closed out effectively. Then in clause 9.3 requires management review. You must have documents. This is mandatory requirements to have procedure for management review and management review schedule and minutes. All these documents will be reviewed by the auditor during stage 1 to check the process and also to confirm management review minutes showing outcomes and decisions and actions from review, including resources allocation and performance of food safety management system. Your deliverables here include management review frequency being defined and required inputs being met and review being scheduled and conducted with clear outcomes and actions for improvement. That's clause 9. And then in clause 10, start with clause 10.1, requires nonconformity and corrective actions. This is mandatory requirements to have corrective action procedure. So you must have the document. The auditor will review during stage 1, will review the corrective action process, and records must show effective implementation, including identification, root cause analysis, actions, verification, and system updates leading to improvement for all the nonconformities. Your deliverables here, you must have documented corrective actions process with records showing effective implementation from identification to system updates and prevention of recurrence. Then in clause 10.2, it requires continual improvement. And here you must have documents for improvement action plans and records. Auditor will look for evidence of ongoing improvement of the food safety management system, for example, from audit findings, from management review, from customer feedback, from new national regulations updates to enhance food safety performance. Your deliverables here, you must have records demonstrating continual improvement of the food safety management system's suitability, adequacy, and effectiveness in a dynamic retail and food service environment. Those are the clause requirements. If you fulfill each, you meet every clause in retail and food service. Now, let's have a look at complete list, simplified. This is all you need to pass stage 1 and stage 2. This is readiness checklist, okay? So just type it out or ask me to send it for you. And this will make sure you are ready for stage 1 and stage 2. First, your scope statement must be approved, must be current, and its boundaries are implemented in practical and reflecting your national retail and food service operations. And your food safety policy must be approved by top management, communicated, and understood by all relevant personnel. All mandatory procedures must be documented and consistently implemented, and records are maintained to prove compliance with ISO 22000 and also your national legislations or regulations requirement. Your hazard plan must be complete with hazard analysis, aligning with your national food control plans or regulations, and effectively manage in daily operations during both normal and peak periods. Your PRP must be documented for all the relevant areas and continuous implementation in advance through detailed records. For example, cleaning logs, pest control reports, and effective hygiene checks. Your traceability system must be documented and proven effective through mock recalls, testing, and meeting requirements of your national timelines or time frame. Calibration system must be established and records demonstrate routine calibration of all the monitoring equipments, including, for example, thermometer and pH meter. And all food safety objectives are SMART. Ensure that must be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound, and progress is actively monitored and reviewed. Ensure also that internal audit programs are established and executed as scheduled with effective follow-up and closure of findings. Ensure management review is scheduled and conducted at planned intervals, leading to clear decisions and actions for food safety management system improvement. Ensure competence requirements are defined and training records or staff interviews confirm all personnel are competent for their food safety roles, including specific national regulatory requirements. Ensure mock recalls procedures are defined and successfully executed, demonstrating traceability within required time frame. For stage 2, ensure no major gaps in documentation or implementation evidence observed during stage 1 or stage 2. Auditors or certified bodies must confirm overall system readiness for stage 2 in national retail and food service sector. Real-time temperature monitoring records must be complete, ensure that accurate, and show appropriate corrective actions for any excursions, and these will require for stage 2. Ensure corrective actions records for food safety incidents, for example, temperature excursions or cross-contaminations, are thorough, showing root cause analysis and verification of effectiveness, and you need them for stage 2. Confirm that staff demonstrates full understanding of food safety principles, critical limits, allergen controls, and nonconformity responses during interview, and these will take place during stage 2. Confirm that maintenance and repair records for essential food safety equipments and facilities are up to date, and ensure operational integrity, and you will need them for stage 2. All right, now let's have a look at traceability and records. Since you have now, now you have complete readiness. You can take a screenshot or ask me to send it to you. All right, for example, and you have now let's have a look at the traceability and recall. Traceability in retail and food service must enable rapid identification of affected products and customers. For prepared foods, this includes knowing what ingredients went into what batches and when they were served. Traceability requirements for your retail and food service. You need to have suppliers and delivery date for all the ingredients being documented accurately. You need batch codes for prepared food where applicable. You need dates and time of preparation for fresh items. You need use by or best before dates clearly marked. You need ability to identify when a specific batch were displayed or served. And you need customer loyalty card data to contact affected consumers if needed, or however you can contact the customers. So you need those elements to implement effective traceability. And you need to test your system. Can your organization identify all affected products, and potentially contact affected customers within the time frame specified by local regulatory authorities for a recall notification? This question should drive your traceability test and improvement and implementation and design to ensure that you complete your traceability during a specified time. For example, you need to complete it within 4 hours from identifications to containment. Now let's have a complete guide, pass guide for ISO 22000 stage 1 audit. And if you follow thoroughly, you will pass the stage 1. First, what is stage 1 really decides? Stage 1 is the documentation readiness audit, where auditors assess whether your food safety management system documentation is complete, logical, and ready for operational verification. For retail and food service operations, stage 1 critically assesses whether hazards analysis reflects live service conditions, behavioral risks, and peak period realities rather than theoretical preparation scenarios. So let's prepare you together to pass this stage. What auditors will review? They will review food safety policy alignment with actual operations. They will review HACCP plans, completeness, and logic. They will review hazard analysis reflecting real service conditions. They will review PRP documentations for all the relevant areas. They will review traceability system design. And they will review calibration procedures. They will review suppliers' approval systems. And for example, in New Zealand context, auditors will check compliance with Food Act 2014 and MPI food safety programs. And you must check to make sure you are in compliance with your local and national regulatory requirements. The critical documentations for stage 1, you need to have a scope statement accurately describes operations. You need to have product descriptions complete, and you need to have flow diagrams verified on site. You need to have hazard analysis for each process step, and you need to have CCP determination, if any, if you have a CCP. And you need PRP procedures, including cleaning procedure, pest control procedure, hygiene procedure, and temperature control procedure. And you need traceability procedures, and you need recall procedures. For example, in New Zealand context, documentation must align with Ministry of Primary Industry requirements. So you must check the requirements of your local regulatory or national regulations and confirm the alignment. In stage 1 also, you will have management interview focus, and they will focus on understanding of food safety risks in consumer focused operations, the management understanding, and management knowledge of behavioral challenge during peak services, and containment to food safety culture, commitment to food safety culture, and also the resources allocations for food safety. An example in New Zealand context, the management must demonstrate understanding of New Zealand food safety regulatory requirements. Common stage 1 failure. Hazard analysis doesn't reflect actual service conditions, and PRP in incomplete or generic, and traceability system not designed for prepared foods, and HACCP team lack retail food service completeness or competence, and the scope doesn't match actual operations, and calibration system not established. Those are the common stage 1 failure that you need to avoid. For example, in New Zealand context, when documentation doesn't align with Ministry of Primary Industry Food Safety Program requirements, that will be considered the failure of stage 1. So how to pass stage 1 here? You need to conduct hazard analysis during actual service periods, and you need to document PRP that reflects behavioral realities, and you need to design traceability for batch coding and customer identification, and you need to ensure HACCP team understands retail service operations, and you need to validate a scope statement matches actual activities, and you need to establish calibration system for all the monitoring equipment. And for example, in New Zealand context, you need to demonstrate understanding of New Zealand food safety regulations, regulatory requirements. Then the complete guide to pass stage 2. Stage 2 reality verifies in the operational implementations audit, where auditors verify that food safety system function during actual service. So expect auditors to observe during peak lunch or dinner periods and interview frontline staff and verify real-time monitoring and corrective actions. The opening meeting expectations during stage 2. Auditors will confirm stage 1 actions are closed and review service schedule to plan observations during peak periods and confirm HACCP teams and key personnel are available and discuss any recent food safety incidents. For example, in New Zealand, auditor will plan to observe lunch rush or food preparations and temperature monitoring. During floor observations focus, the auditors will observe during actual service periods and verify PRP functions, including cleaning, hygiene, and temperature control, and check monitoring records are current and accurate, and interview staff about food safety procedures, and observe corrective actions when limits are exceeded, and verify traceability systems works in practice. And for example, in New Zealand context, auditors will observe compliance with MPI requirements during peak service. For documentation preparation or documentation verifications, the HACCP plans must reflect actual operations, and monitoring records must be complete and accurate, and corrective actions records must show root cause analysis, and calibration records must be current, and supplier approvals documentations must be accurate, and training records must demonstrate completeness, and mock recalls results must be shown accurately. For example, in New Zealand context, auditors will verify compliance with Food Act 2014 and MPI food safety programs. For a staff interview focus, auditors will focus on understanding of food safety hazards by their staff and their knowledge of the critical limits and monitoring, and their ability to explain corrective actions, and their awareness of allergen controls if applicable, and their understanding of traceability requirements. And for example, in New Zealand context, for the staff interview focus, a staff must have the ability to explain why controls exist, and they must reference food safety requirements. For critical success factors, staff must explain why controls exist and not just what they do, and monitoring happens in real time and not retrospectively, and corrective actions address root causes, and temperature failure triggers immediate investigation, and traceability can identify affected products within required time frames, and management demonstrates visible food safety leadership. The common stage 2 findings: when monitoring records are completed retrospectively, you must avoid that and you must fill them during real time. When the staff are unable to explain critical limits, and when corrective actions don't address root causes, and calibration overdue on monitoring equipment, and when traceability team can identify affected batch quickly, and when PRP not maintained during peak periods. Those are the common stage 2 findings that you should take notes and avoid. Now, let's look at the common ISO findings, common ISO 22 findings, and understanding those common audit findings will help retail and food service, or will help your organization proactively address weaknesses before certification audits. First, you have weak allergen controls is a common findings. When menu information inaccurate or incomplete, or cross contacts during preparations not controlled, or staff cannot answer customer allergen questions accurately, or when substitution is made without allergen checks. Also, you have poor hygiene discipline is also a common findings. When hand washing is skipped during busy periods, and when gloves not changed between tasks, or when staff touching ready-to-eat food with bare hands, and when clean and dirty equipment mix. It's also poor hygiene disciplines. That is a common finding for ISO 22000, and you can avoid. The other common finding is inconsistent temperature monitoring, when cooking temperature is not always checked, and when holding times exceed limits, and when display case temperatures recorded but not acted upon, and when cooling logs completed retrospectively. The other common findings is training gaps. Here, when new starters working unsupervised before competency is verified, and when training records exist but staff cannot demonstrate knowledge, and when there are no verifications of understanding. Those are the common findings of ISO 22000 that you must avoid. The following are the common safety signals or excellence signals that you can adapt. You should give your staff awareness to be able to explain the why. Your staff should explain why hand wash matters, and not just that it's required. They must understand cross-contamination risks and not just follow procedures, and they must know why allergen control is critical. So give them enough awareness and enough training to be able to understand the why. And also the deviation escalated immediately. This is a signal of safety excellence, food safety excellence, when staff reports temperature failures immediately and supervisors notify of equipment problems in a real time, and product disposition decisions made quickly by authorized personnel and not delay in address food safety issues. This is a leadership function to empower the staff and give awareness and authorization to staff to stop the deviation and escalate as soon as possible. Is a signal of food safety excellence. Another signal is control, when controls are maintained during peak hours, when hygiene standards are the same during rush periods as quiet times, and when temperature monitoring continues during busy service, and when allergen procedures followed even when customers are waiting, and when food safety never compromised for speed. These are signals for food safety excellence. You can adapt, empower the staff, spread awareness, and excel in operational excellence. We will move next to part 4, which is going to address FSSC 22000 and the integrated management system to implement all the standards. So thank you for watching. But if you are looking for furthermore explanations, for example, the schedule timing, like the timeline of the audit being conducted, what is happening in the first day or the second day or first hour or second hours in details, please check out part 2 or part 1. You have more details there. Thank you. All the best with your certification pursuit, and see you there in part 4 for FSSC and integrated management system. Take care and bye.